Welcome to another episode of Comic Conversation. Now I'm really excited right now because there is a lot going on in the comic book world. We just had NYCC here in the metropolitan area recently, and I can tell you it was awesome. We've got some exclusive stills of that later on in the show. Also, in the world of television, we've got The Flash premiered on CW, and that was super cool. Arrow's back for Season 3, and Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is back for Season 2. And Constantine is on the way, and let's not forget about Gotham, which is also getting big ratings, and I thought it was pretty cool too. But this is mainly a comic book show where we focus on comic books themselves, so we're going to get to some reviews of some of the biggest comics that are out on stands now. So, let's have at it. Okay, so first up we have Batman 35 by Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder. This kicks off the Endgame arc of the Batman series, and I can tell you they kicked it off in big fashion. And before we get to that, I just want to talk about something real quick. This comic was $4.99, which a lot of comics have been going up to recently. In this story, they actually gave you two stories in one. They made the book a little bit bigger for that extra money. But I want to know what your thoughts are on that. There's a lot of conflicting views. Comics were sort of already expensive enough anyway, most people thought, and now that they're $4.99, I wonder if this is going to start to dissuade people from buying comics the old-fashioned way. But, so let's get back to the story now. The first part of this story kicks off the Endgame arc, as I mentioned earlier. And basically what's going on here is Batman takes on the Justice League. I don't know if it gets much bigger than that to kick off an event, but it starts off a little bit confusing, a little Grant Morrison-y, sort of a lot of flashbacks and dream sequences, and it takes a while to get a rhythm going. But once it does, it is ass-kicking. Batman uses this giant techno suit to take on the Justice League, and I gotta just say I'm really a big fan of the Batman rocking all these suits that he's been wearing in the New 52. It always made sense to me that Batman would up his armor when he was going to take on big villains or even his own friends, which he seems to do quite a bit. And the suit just looks great. Greg Capullo does a great job on it. Looks a little bit like Rhino from the Marvel Universe, which is kind of crazy, but I liked it. He takes on Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, all the big Justice League members, and it gets kind of crazy. And then there's a big reveal at the end of the story as to who the villain behind this whole fight sequence is, who orchestrated this whole event. Now, I'm not going to spoil that for you. I'm going to let you read that and find out for yourselves. But I can say, so far, a good start to this event. Okay, so for the backup storyline in this issue, the artwork is done by Kelly Jones. And I just got to start off by saying I'm a huge Kelly Jones fan. A lot of you will remember him, a lot of you who are my age will remember him from the Nightfall covers that he did. Founder's going to pass me over this Batman.
I do stuff.
Yeah, he draws the big Batman with the big ears, and he's kind of crazy and elongated. He's got 1,000 muscles, and his cape is just flowing all over the place. I always just thought it looks awesome. And he does this really, really creepy backstory to this issue, backup story, I should say, to this issue, with a lot of different maniacs sort of discussing this diabolical plan that's going to tie into the Endgame event. I can't really tell you too much about that, because that ties into the mystery villain of the Endgame series, and I'm going to let you find that out for yourself, like I said before. But yeah, overall, really cool, and I think it kind of blended well. It was kind of a big contrast in the look and feel of this story compared to the first part of the story that we saw in this issue, but I think it works. Overall, I really like this issue. I think it's a good start to this event. A lot of people have been waiting for this. Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo haven't disappointed in the past. Court of Owls was about as big a storyline as you could get, and they followed up pretty well from there too. And this looks like it's going to continue on with that tradition. So, for those of you who are familiar, the way we rate things on the show is by a cape system, I should say. And I'm going to go ahead and give this issue 4 out of 5 capes. Next up, we have Axis number 2 by Rick Remender and Andy Kubert. Now, off the bat here, I just want to say Rick Remender is one of my favorite writers in comic books today. This guy's motto should be go big or go home. He throws everything but the kitchen sink at his storylines, and this is no exception. Now, Uncanny X-Force was one of my favorite Marvel storylines of all time, and it looks like he's going to have a big blockbuster to keeping the tradition of that. For those of you who aren't familiar with the backstory to Axis, this is Marvel's big event going on right now. It really spins out of the events of Uncanny Avengers. And basically what has been going on there is the Red Skull has taken Professor X's brain. Professor X, for those of you who don't know, has been dead in the comics for quite a while now. He died as a result of the Avengers vs. X-Men series. And Red Skull has taken his brain, or at least a portion of it, and put it inside his own. And that's given him the powers of Professor X. So if you can imagine that, Professor X's brain in Red Skull, and Red Skull with his diabolical evil mind running around with the powers of Professor X. It's just totally insane. That all developed in Uncanny Avengers, and the way that series leading up to this sort of ended was Magneto got into a big falling out with the Red Skull. Now, from there, that sparked Red Skull becoming Red Onslaught. For those of you who are familiar with the 90s X-Men storylines, you remember Onslaught was this crazy villain, mega X-Men crossover event. And that villain was a combination of Professor X and Magneto. I guess since Magneto killed this Red Skull, Professor X hybrid, it spawned Red Skull to become the Red Onslaught. He's about the size of the Empire State Building, and he's as badass as ever. He's got tentacles coming out of his back and everything. It's totally insane. And throughout this issue, he's taking on not only the X-Men, but the Avengers and some of the Inhumans as well. And it is crazy. Red Skull's basically set up a concentration camp for mutants to sort of target racism and hate. And this group of heroes comes to sort of take that apart, take down the Red Onslaught. He sort of gets the upper hand, and he attacks them with two giant adamantium sentinels that were actually a creation of Tony Stark's that he came up with back during the Civil War. I told you, Rick Remender, go big or go home. And he uses these two giant sentinels to take on all of those heroes. It just goes completely insane. Tony Stark's sort of the focus of this. He has a lot of guilt that his brain came up with these wacky sentinels, adamantium sentinels. But it's just really an awesome story from beginning to end. The guy puts together a whole roller coaster of a storyline here. If I had one complaint about the book, it's Adam Kubert's artwork. I'm not really crazy about Adam Kubert. I'm a bigger fan of his brother Andy. And it's just a little sketchy here. It doesn't quite do the trick for me. It's serviceable, but I think for a story of this magnitude, they should have gotten a Jimmy Chung or Mike Deodato, someone along those lines. I think it just would have added to the book. But I really can't complain too much because the storyline is so cool and it's headed in a really good direction. Now, I hate to give two really good reviews to two books again on the show, but I gotta say they were both good books. I'm not just gonna trash them just to trash them. Although there will come to a point in this show when we do trash books that I don't like. It just hasn't happened yet. But I'm gonna go ahead and give this one 4.5 capes out of 5. That's how much I like it. I really do suggest you pick it up. And I suggest you go out and get the Uncanny Avengers arc that's just been spectacular leading up to this. Alright, so that just about does it for this show. But let's keep the conversation going. Leave your comments here. Let Founder Voice, my partner in crime, know what you think about the show. What you think we could do better. What you think about what we said here today. Or, like I would say, just trash me personally if you feel like it. But just keep the conversation going. That's all we ask. Alright, thank you, and till next time.